You're right. We do. Turns out the school has a f***ing Mengele health clinic.
Hey, welcome back, ScreenCrush. I'm Ryan Harriet, and this is all of the Easter eggs, references, and little things you might have missed in episode 4 of Gen V. I'm also going to talk about that ending and throw out a couple theories about what the hell happened there.
I promise.
And guys, if you're a fan of our channel and the show, you might like this GodU shirt for sale in our merch store, ScreenCrushMerch.com, link in the description. Thanks for supporting the channel, and let's dive in. So, there's an ongoing theme in this episode about penetrating the brain or the mind. We begin in the aftermath of literal brain penetration, Emma killing the guard. And this is when the dean talks about this in like a lot more vulgar, literal way.
That's the sum total of your searing insight that Sam's skull Bob here.
And there's also Rufus, who uses his powers to enter Marie's brain and attempt to assault her.
What you get!
Tech Knight can use his hypersenses to figure out what people are thinking, a kind of mind reading, and he also has a brain tumor himself, another invasive presence inside of somebody's mind. And of course there is Sam, who's had so many invasive procedures done on his brain that he has been driven insane. And of course Tech Knight is also always trying to penetrate brains and anything else in sight. The question is though, why this theme?
Tell me why!
Well, this show has a lot of people who are keeping secrets. The Dean, the kids, Polarity, Vought, and in this episode we see that in the world of the Soups, no secret is safe. The ending also makes us question our own reality, putting us in the same position as Sam, who does not know what's real.
Are you real?
But I'll talk more on that ending in a bit. Now the intro, with the camera slowly pulling out of a brain and through the ear canal, is very reminiscent of the opening to David Fincher's 1999 Fight Club. That movie also featured a schizophrenic character who heard voices and couldn't trust his own perceptions of reality. The opening was also a clever way to foreshadow that all the narrator's troubles were in his own mind, just like how people keeping secrets on this show are what's causing everybody trouble. So all through this episode we see various posters and flyers on the walls, which we've already talked about extensively in our episode 1 through 3 breakdown. So for the most part, I'm not going to point out every single flyer if we've seen it before, but you know what? Feel free to watch our earlier breakdown if you really want to know every detail in the background of these hallways.
Yoda, I must know.
Speaking of which, if you have not seen the GodU University website, you are missing out. It is an in-universe tour of the campus filled with cool details and Easter eggs, very much worth a click. What, are they paying you or something? I wish. Now, in Sam's room, I did notice, however, that the animals on the wall are like a little bit cartoonish, kind of like this bear, which reminded me of the Buster Beaver hallucination that Black Noir had in The Boys.
Remember when you were 9 and you hid in that ball pit right over there? After you paralyzed Louis Frankel?
So this got me thinking, GodU University never actually claims Black Noir as a graduate, but what if he was a graduate of the woods? Like, for decades they have been running 2 universities, the public-facing one where they train actors and heroes, and then also the sub-basement where they brainwash kids into becoming Black Ops soldiers who do Vought's bidding. I mean, Black Noir does appear in this stained glass window here, which means he did have an association with this school. Then we go from Emma's tiny doll shoe to another clue of her whereabouts, the tracker that Andre gave her. He stands in a crater and says,
maybe Sam can jump like Maeve does?
And this is also like the Incredible Hulk, who can jump up to 3 miles at a time in the comics. And then this serious life or death moment is interrupted with rankings. Again, showing that no matter how dire and real the circumstances are, people in this universe will always be worried about their social media position.
We got bigger f***ing problems.
Says number 1.
They refer to the woods as the Mengele health clinic, referring to Joseph Mengele, the Nazi scientist who experimented on Jews in Nazi death camps. And actually, the boys' comics and show have a version of this character. Season 1's Dr. Joseph Vogelbaum. And we found out in Season 2 that the Soups were actually created by Nazis to be the ultimate Supermen. So really, this comparison's not far off. And they also make sly references here to Scooby-Doo.
But you guys are gonna get a green van and a talking dog and f***ing solve it?
And then we see Emma and Luke hiding out in an old drive-in movie theater where the last film to play was Soldier Boy's Red Thunder 2. Remember, we saw a clip of Red Thunder here.
At last, the famous American hero, Soldier Boy.
And the other movie is called That Four-Letter Word, and I don't think that we've actually heard that reference before. And man, I just love how weird this show is. Like, this is a heartfelt talk between a tiny person and a psychotic Superman, and it gets you in the feels.
Everybody always leaves me.
Promise I'm with you.
I also think that Emma's powers are interesting, like how when she's tiny, she can jump off this table and not like completely break her legs. She must be like an ant with a greater surface tension when she's small, so she doesn't explode when she hit the ground like she's jumping off a building. And then we meet Tech Knight, a character I have been waiting to see since this show hit the air. In the comics, Tech Knight is a parody of Iron Man, a billionaire who builds a suit of armor for his own pleasure. And just like in the show, he has a brain tumor that makes him want to penetrate more than just minds. In fact, his final appearance in the comics is him hallucinating, thinking that he's going into outer space to have sex with a meteor to save the Earth. His catchphrase is, "I can it." Now, Tech Knight has been mentioned in The Boys before, by Stan Edgar here.
You have a premiere of Tech Knight Lives to go to?
And in Huey's Soup Survival Group.
After all, Tech Knight saved me. I just wish he'd been a little more gentle with my spine.
And that incident was actually seen in a newspaper clipping right here. So these early mentions seems to imply that he was going to be wearing a suit of armor, which has been reinvented for this show. Also on the campus grounds here, we can see an empty pedestal that is the one dedicated to Translucent. Tech's intro features several clips from The Boys, including Queen Maeve in Dawn of the Seven, the Deep from the reality show in Season 3, and A-Train from his Season 1 race. Tech Knight says,
"This whole case is a rabbit hole into the unknown, and I won't stop plunging its depths until I get them."
So this is calling to mind the gruesome opening shot, and of course his fetish for inanimate objects. Also, when he has to redo the intro, it's just another way of showing us that people in this world are all fake, and that their shows of heroism are all part of an act to gain them fame. In the dean's office, notice she has a degree from GodU. Maybe she earned an honorary degree, or maybe some humans can be accepted into this school. When the dean says that he's looking for a scapegoat to distract from the school's problems, he says,
"I'm gonna Johnny Depp someone so hard they're gonna want to crawl into a hole and die."
Probably referencing Johnny Depp's defamation trial against Amber Heard. What happened there? No idea. I didn't follow it. Okay then. In Kate's room, we get a little more insight into her character. She's an artist. There's a painting here of a drama mask. Although she's not in the School of Performing Arts, this is appropriate because her power is to use and manipulate emotions, kind of like an actor. So you did watch the Johnny Depp trial? A little, yeah. Andre mentions that he used to look up to his dad and watched all of his Area 51 movies, and I believe that we see a poster for one of those movies at the drive-in here. Rufus is watching a Tech Knight video about Shehemoth, a parody of She-Hulk that was a minor character in the Boys comics. We also saw Rufus in a previous episode. He was the Homelander fan who wore the red hat in this scene, and he even copies a move from the Homelander playbook. He tells Marie,
I'm f***ing with you.
just like how all through the Season 3 of The Boys, Homelander kept saying awful things and then following them up with,
"I'm kidding."
and then he attempts to sexually assault her. So we really don't mind when she uses her power to, well, you know. And this isn't the first time we've seen his junk get abused on this show. Kate told him to hit himself with a bat right in the quads, which he did here. The song playing in this scene is True, normally a sweet romantic ballad that has been forever ruined in my mind. And here we see a poster for A-Train in the hallway, which is new. Now, Jordan is becoming one of my favorite characters in this show. So they have this chip on their shoulder where they're always trying to prove to their dad that because they're bigender, they are better than just a son could ever be. So all they care about are their rankings. But in this episode, we saw them overcome their jealousy and finally see Marie as a person. Now, maybe this is because Tech Knight tries to exploit their jealousy, and then they overcome it to prove him wrong.
Have you always been angry at Golden Boy?
And notice in Kate's interview, she wears these protective gloves, much like Rogue does in the X-Men. Now, Rogue also had a tragic origin story, just like Kate does, but the gloves are more to keep Kate from using her powers intentionally, because, unlike Rogue, she can control her abilities. Or, you know what, maybe sometimes she can't control her ability and it's involuntary, and so the gloves really are for her own protection. Back to the drive-in, where we see a poster for Red Thunder 2 right here, in the style of an 80s action movie poster like Rambo 3 or Cobra. And also, this poster in the background looks a lot like the movie Clueless. Then Tech Knight returns to his old class to tear down Marie's story.
Jordan's the hero, not me.
And it's crazy how much good this guy could have done for the world, interrogating terrorists or criminals, but instead he's a self-serving megalomaniac, like all soups are. Afterwards, he says,
"Digging for the truth is a rush. Oh, it's better than sex."
Which again, we're getting into this imagery that connects secrets with intercourse. Digging for the truth mentioned in the same breath as sex. Also notice how he doesn't flinch when people want selfies, and nobody even bothers to ask, following up on the lesson that Marie learned in episode 2.
You can say literally anything to them, and they will still take the photo.
That's why you say yes, to give the illusion of choice.
Later, he tells the dean,
"Well, you're just a human."
Which is actually a soup saying the quiet part out loud. Like Homelander let a little bit of this language slip out sometimes.
We're a different breed. You've been helping these Want people?
And deep down, I think every soup feels this way, even Annie. They all feel that they're superior to the little people, the humans. Back to the drive-in where Sam's hallucinations really kick in, where he watches a segment on Avenue V, V for Vought. Now this is obviously a parody of Sesame Street, but it's also a parody of the Sesame Street parody musical, Avenue Q. I loved how he kept calling Jason Ritter
television's Jason Ritter.
And by the way, Jason Ritter is the son of the late actor John Ritter from Three's Company and 8 Simple Rules. He's singing a song with a puppet of the deep, complete with his own gross singing gills, calling back to the weirdest scene ever from The Boys.
You are so beautiful.
Hey, how did Sam know that the Deep has gills? And why did he have the same hallucinations as the Deep? Now maybe it's because the Deep also went to GodU and had the same invasive experiments performed on him. And by the way, somehow puppet gills are even more gross. Outside, the Statue of Polarity has a hole in its crotch which is wrought with all sorts of Freudian symbolism that I just cannot help poor Andre unpack right now. This hole actually might have foreshadowed what happened to Rufus earlier in this episode. Jordan and Marie finally hook up until Emma C-3POs the situation.
Sir, I've isolated the reverse power flux coupling.
And then the Dean calls out Tech Knight's sexual fetish, which frankly, compared to a lot of the stuff that Soups get up to, is really not that bad. No one else is harmed. Then Sam goes to the home of Dr. Cardoza to, kill his entire family. This reminded me a lot of the revenge spree from Stranger Things, where 11 and 8 hunt down the guards who kept them captive at the Hawkins lab. But then the kids, Generation V, show up to fight Sam. Now, I've pointed out before that the reason this show is called Gen V is because this is the first generation of kids who know their powers come from Compound V. So they've been fed this lie their entire lives, that their powers came from God. So now they are more likely to challenge authority, and maybe to break this cycle of celebrity soups where they only use your powers for your own personal benefit. But the name could also be like, this is the name of this team of heroes. In the comics, teen sidekick groups like the Teen Titans have been around for years, and there are teen groups in the boys universe like the Young Americans in the comics. So the name Gen V could also be a callback to the underrated X-Men book Generation X, about a new generation of mutants at Xavier's school who are really into irony and wearing flannel. My people. Another interesting aspect of Jordan is that their powers change based on their gender. Both genders are physically strong, but the male version is invulnerable and impossible to move, a lot like the Blob in the X-Men comics, while the female version also has a blast cannon and greater agility. So in a fight, they can quickly adapt to any situation. And then Emma overeats and becomes Giant Girl. Now I love this twist so much. Obviously, this is like Ant-Man/Giant Man in the comics and the movies who can shrink or grow. But this also fits in perfectly with the metaphor of Emma's powers being akin to an eating disorder. Her mom thinks she needs to stay small and weak, and that she isn't strong like Queen Maeve.
I mean, like Queen Maeve, Baby, you're not like...
In the same way, many people who suffer from bulimia believe that they have to stay skinny in order to be small and attractive, or even to have a career. But Emma's true strength comes from overeating, being herself, and becoming more powerful than her mother wants her to be. Page and Dr. Freud. I know, right? And then that ending. When Marie blacks out and wakes up beside Jordan. So one reason for this could be that Dr. Cardoza has some kind of serum handy and he injects Marie, but that would not explain why the others seem to black out as well. After all, Marie wakes up beside Jordan. So this probably means that Rufus was there and he did something to them, which would mean that Rufus is working for the school and Dr. Cardoza. I mean, I'm not surprised. He is, after all, a pretty big Homelander fan. So this would mean that earlier in the episode, when he gave clues about Emma,
she looks rough, and she's with some dude.
He was really just setting up Marie, hoping that she would lead Rufus and the school to Emma and Sam. So then, how far does that conspiracy go? Maybe Rufus was supposed to bring Marie to his room so Jordan could interrupt. Then that would have made Marie trust Jordan, because maybe Jordan, Brinks' favorite student, knows about the woods and is also helping the professors. So then, they would be getting close to Marie on purpose, to find Sam in exchange for furthering their own career. Now, of course, poor Rufus didn't know that Marie would freak out and that this would happen. Now the final song is Gotta Work, which without getting too graphic is about female sexual empowerment. The song's lyrics also talk about this episode's theme of penetration, so it's fitting that the episode ends with Tech Knight abusing this poor hand dryer. Well guys, that's my thoughts on the episode. That's everything I found. Let me know, do you think that Jordan is a double agent? Let me know in the comments below or at me on Twitter. And if it's your first time here, please subscribe, smash that bell for alerts. For ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Airy.